Yo, this is the Scarcity Studios YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. And our sponsors are Alpha Claims and Hire, Birmingham, the leading and best accident management company. Get a replacement car anywhere in Birmingham within 1 hour. Thanks for joining me. And before we start, I'd just like to mention about the voice notes that have emerged about Krept, confirming that he was attacked at 1Extra in the backstage area and also that people had got him with weapons. But at the same time, I'm not sure what the legal ramifications are for actually publishing the whole voice note. It could incriminate people that haven't been convicted of crimes yet. A lot of other blogs will do that, but that's not what I'm about. I'm about telling stories and about piecing together all the facts. So I'll definitely keep you updated on any updates with that, because there is an open police investigation currently at the moment, so we wouldn't want to influence that in any way, shape or form. This story is coming from Manchester. Please don't forget to check out the Paul Massey story from yesterday. But this story is about the death of Yusef Makki. He was 17 years old, and I'm reacting. There's two papers here that I've seen initially, is the Independent and also the Sun's reference to, because the Sun always has their own little take on stuff. So I know some people don't like the Sun and some people have boycotted it. The private schoolboy who stabbed his friend, he was actually meant to be friends with him, Yusef Makki, to death, has finally been named. They also specified that he used to listen to drill music, so this was actually very talked upon inside the case. They actually used it as an actual excuse for what this child did. Joshua Molnar, whose identity has been protected under the name Boy A, killed Yousef after he stabbed him in the heart in a drug-related argument on March the 2nd. And his identity was withheld due to his age at the time, but also he comes from a very rich family. And also I find with stories like this is that people that have good access to lawyers are very good at making stuff disappear online. For example, I've seen cases where they've totally just had it taken down from like all sorts of websites, etc, etc. His identity is no longer a secret, and the papers can now publish that Josh just turned 18 on Tuesday, and the Cheadle Hulme school pupil was unanimously cleared of murder and manslaughter of Yousef back in July by a jury on the basis of self-defence. Molnar was locked up after he admitted possessing the knife that caused Yousef's fatal wound and perverting the course of justice by lying to police that someone else had inflicted the injury. He's currently serving a sentence in a Young Offenders Institute, and I think this story is important due to the details of the case. Molnar's mum, Stephanie, also did an interview. His mum has had a lot of interviews with a lot of the press. For a boy that has taken somebody's life, I've never seen a mother have so many interviews about it. So somebody did mention to me that they may have a PR team. So it'd be that's an interesting element to it as well, that the family can deal with a situation by actually dealing with the media in a different way. You'd never see this in Birmingham or in London. She said she could not imagine what Yousef's parents are going through, trying to come to terms with this. She fully accepts that Joshua's responsibility for the death in an act of self-defence, and the impact of the acceptance is massive. He will have to live with the responsibility of his role for the rest of his life. We are also acutely aware that the hurt and loss that Yousef's family are experiencing is infinitely greater than anything we are going through, and nothing I can say can make up or change that. Yousef from Burnage was the academically gifted boy. He won a bursary to the best academic school in the country. Molnar was one of his friends from a leafy suburb who wanted for nothing, they said. His dad was a graduate company director and his mother was the founder of a chain of Cheshire nurseries. The pair divorced when he was 13, but gave him a very privileged life and independent schools, designer gifts, expensive holidays and days out, raising him in Cheshire. But Molnar was eager to create a bad boy image among his other private school friends in the local street. Josh would tell friends that at times he had run away from home and talked about sleeping in his mother's car. A source close to the family said neither of the parents was aware that he had ever ran away from home and don't recall him ever sleeping in his mother's car. At the age of 15, he began smoking cannabis, wearing a bandana and carrying a shank, also known as a knife, in an Armani bag. He began living what his own lawyer described as a fantasy life as a juvenile, a middle-class gangster, playing around with knives and getting into fights. One detective described him and the defendant as rich kids who have never had to live in the real world. The elite schools that Josh went to often enabled students to go to Oxford and Cambridge, but he was not an academic high achiever like his friend Yousef. Instead, he saw himself as the class clown. It was on the rugby field in school teams with Altrincham Kersal Rugby Club that he expressed himself and found a vent for his aggressive streak. He started carrying a knife for protection against muggings, and because peer pressure made him feel I should do that, he told his trial, if I had a pretty good knife I would show it off to people. His school that he went to was 12,000 £100,000 a year. People called him a flash bully, pushing people over in the corridors and also uploading a lot of pictures of his latest designer purchases online. There was also video footage, selfie footage that they used in the prosecution that it showed him with a machete where he was recording himself in a mirror, waving it around and actually putting it up to one of his friends' faces. And then they specify again in the trial about drill music and how this influenced him and how this is partly responsible for it. In February this year, Molnar shot another video where he appeared to make slashing movements and stabbed a blade into a mattress. On March the 2nd, he stabbed somebody for real. He stabbed Yousef through the heart on Gorsebank Road in Leafy, Hale Barnes, an act the jury accepted by their verdict was self-defence. Yousef, 17, was a pupil at Manchester Grammar School. Unlike Molnar, his parents could never have actually afforded an independent school without financial help. The knife that killed Yousef was delivered with enough force that it went into his chest, delivering a 12cm deep wound that went straight through his heart. Earlier that night, Molnar, Yousef and the third boy had been socialising, smoking cannabis, and they had knives, which the third boy had bought online. Molnar ended up getting jumped during an alleged drug deal to buy cannabis that went wrong. They claimed that Yousef and the third boy did not help him in the fight. Molnar's trial heard he blamed the third boy, the one that had bought the knives, who cannot be named for legal reasons, for arranging the ill-fated drug deal. He claimed that Yousef had taunted him, calling him a pussy. Molnar told jurors that he saw Yousef take out his knife. He said he felt quite on edge, Josh said, and he took out his knife in a bid to warn him off. Asked if he knew how the knife ended up in Josh, he said, "Not really. I do not know what I did. I don't know how it all came together." In the aftermath, Josh described how he had made an attempt to help Yousef by taking off his top and using it to stop the blood flow. He actually got sentenced to 16 months in a detention and found not guilty of murder or manslaughter. The other boy is serving a 4-month sentence for possessing a knife. And this is what I mean by the worryingness of this trial, is that basically these boys was all playing with knives. From the evidence they had in court, it would show that Josh was more prone to violence than Yousef was. There was no reason to say that Yousef had done anything violent to anybody, but there was a lot of information to say that Josh was prone to knives and liked to use knives. Also, the other thing I'd like to note is the wound. He put the knife through his heart. To be fair, I've never known a self-defense wound to be classed as stabbing somebody straight through the heart. It's one stab through the heart. That is a lot of force, a lot of pressure. So I was very surprised that he even managed to get off with not even manslaughter. But this goes to show the legal side of things, where in this case, these 3 boys were all playing with knives. Nobody else was present. Only these boys know what happened. So in a court of law, when you've got so much doubt, that's what it's got to be beyond reasonable doubt. But when it isn't beyond reasonable doubt, when there is some slight question if somebody had retaliated or if somebody had attacked him, then the jury cannot find the person guilty. And in this case, maybe no one will ever know, because obviously Yousef is not here to explain himself, and the mother of Josh Molnar and his family are making damn sure that his side is put across in a very good, articulate way. I haven't heard anything from Yousef's parents or any side of that in the media. All I've seen is Josh's family talking about how Josh has to deal with this and how Josh has to deal with that. But what about Yousef's family to deal with right now? I'm sad about this story, and I'm also slightly confused as to how this happened, but also at the same time understand that the legal system is a very complex place, and money gets you a long way. It definitely does. It definitely helps in all aspects. So like I said, you have to be careful when you're dealing with cases like this, mainly just due to the fact I'm always respectful. I always try to keep to the facts. If there's a mistake, anyone can contact me. I can get it corrected. And I always acknowledge any sort of mistakes as well. So I really want to pay my respects to Yousef's family. Rest in peace. And I really hope that somebody can take a lesson from this to just, don't risk hanging around with people that hang around with knives, because if something does happen, please share it, subscribe it. It really does help you guys that get the message and the story out there. So I really appreciate you joining me today. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. Thank you.